one day somebody does something unspeakable to someone else, to someone you hardly knew, and you do something about it, because you can.
This story comes to us from AP News. A U.S. Justice Department investigation into the Memphis Police Department after the beating of Tyree Nichols found a pattern of unlawful use of excessive force and discrimination against the black residents of the majority black city in Tennessee. That's Memphis. The Memphis case is one of 12 similar investigations of state and local law enforcement agencies opened by the Department of Justice since April of 2021. It's across the U.S. Many have been in response to high-profile deaths at the hands of police, including George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. The 5 other completed investigations all found patterns of illegal police practices. George Floyd died in May of 2020 after a white officer pinned his neck to the pavement in Minneapolis for 9.5 minutes, despite the black man's pleas of, "I can't breathe." The ensuing global protests, which turned violent at times, sparked a nationwide reckoning over racism and police misconduct. In fact, the country burned. Officer Derek Chauvin was convicted of murder. In June of 2023, the Department of Justice issued a report saying the police department in Minneapolis engaged in a pattern of using excessive force and discrimination. The city agreed to resolve the findings through a consent decree with an independent monitor. Breonna Taylor was shot and killed in her home during a raid in March of 2020. Federal and state prosecutors have said Jonathan Mattingly and Miles Cosgrove were justified in returning fire after Taylor's boyfriend grabbed a handgun and shot Mattingly in the leg. Taylor's boyfriend said he mistook the police for an intruder breaking in after midnight. The 2 officers left the department years ago and were not charged with any crimes. 2 other former Louisville officers have been accused in federal court of falsifying the Taylor warrant. In March of 2023, the Department of Justice issued findings that the Louisville Metro Police Department had a pattern of unlawful practices that included executing search warrants without knocking and announcing. The report acknowledged changes already made by Louisville police and identified additional remedial measures that were needed. In Phoenix, Arizona, there wasn't a single episode that led to the Department of Justice investigation. Instead, it came after many smaller scandals. A 2020 case accusing 15 protesters of being in an anti-police gang had to be dismissed for lack of credible evidence. In 2017, a challenge coin was circulated among officers depicting a gas mask wearing demonstrator getting shot in the groin with a projectile. And in June of 2019, cell phone video emerged showing officers pointing guns when they confronted an unarmed black couple with 2 small children they suspected of shoplifting. This June, this year, the Justice Department issued a report finding that the Phoenix Police Department had a pattern of several unlawful practices. They included unlawfully arresting homeless people and their disposing of their belongings, the unjustified use of deadly force, and discrimination against Black, Hispanic, and Native American people, and those experiencing mental health crises. City officials have said they are analyzing the report. They've also launched a new website describing the police department's road to reform and what they are doing to reduce the number of use of force incidents. Now, the Department of Justice investigation of Lexington, Mississippi, followed a lawsuit by a civil rights group that accused police in this small rural town of terrorizing black residents by subjecting them to false arrests, excessive force, and intimidation. The report, released in September, said the Lexington Police Department in Mississippi has created a system where officers can relentlessly violate the law. That's nationwide. The department operates under an unconstitutional conflict of interest because it is partially funded by money raised through fines. Police routinely arrest people who cannot pay fines or who owe outstanding fines, and people are jailed without prompt access to court and with no assessment of their ability to pay bail, the report found. Now, the city and police cooperated fully with the investigation and are committed to working with the DOJ to address the violations. While in Trenton, New Jersey, the DOJ issued a report just last month that concluded officers in the state's capital have a pattern of misconduct, including using excessive force and making unlawful stops. The report documents arrests without legal basis, officers escalating situations with aggression, and unnecessary use of pepper spray. Officials said the city has cooperated and will continue to cooperate with the Department of Justice. Trenton has so far disbanded 2 police department street units that officials said violated the Constitution. 6 similar investigations are still in progress. In Louisiana, the Justice Department announced a federal probe in 2022 following an Associated Press investigation into the deadly 2019 arrest of Ronald Green, and at least a dozen cases in which troopers or their bosses ignored or concealed evidence of beatings. Ronald Green was beaten to death by troopers. Federal authorities were asked to investigate the Mount Vernon Police Department in a suburb of New York City by the Westchester County District Attorney, who suggested the department has a problem with illegal strip searches. The Special Victims Division of the NYPD is under investigation for how it handles sexual assault crimes following years of complaints about the way investigators treat crime victims. In Oklahoma, still going, the DOJ is investigating whether the state, Oklahoma City, and Oklahoma City police discriminate against mentally ill adults, including by institutionalizing them when they could be helped in community settings. The torture of 2 black men by white sheriff's officers in Mississippi led to a probe of the Rankin County Sheriff's Department. Following an Associated Press investigation, 5 Rankin officers and 1 from another department were charged and sentenced to terms of 10 to 40 years. While up north in Massachusetts, federal prosecutors did not point to any specific episode that triggered their investigation into a possible pattern of excessive force and discriminatory policing. The probe followed a lawsuit filed by a black man who said he was wrongfully charged with murder based on his race and fabricated evidence. And there you go. I tried to make that as quick as possible. It's kind of a lengthy story. But what I wanted you to hear from this was that across the nation, from New York down to Mississippi, over to Louisiana, and all these places in between, they didn't even cover yet Los Angeles. They did cover Phoenix, Arizona, so that they went far west. They didn't cover Los Angeles, or any parts of Texas. But you've heard that the Department of Justice is now starting to look into these police agencies and say, hold on a minute. Maybe there is some truth to what these guys are putting on social media. Maybe these YouTubers and these First Amendment auditors, maybe there's some truth to this stuff. I think maybe the Department of Justice might be saying that. Or do you think it's just a dog and pony show, kind of a circus to say, we're doing something, see? But what are they really doing? I mean, there were the officers in Rankin that, 10 to 40 years, they got sentenced. But what's the DOJ really doing? I mean, Phoenix, Arizona, they're still messing up. Aurora, Colorado. Loveland Police Colorado. What's the DOJ really doing?